Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, counter-spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve.
Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into a time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
We go back 81 years to November 9th, 1941. William Johnstone, Marjorie-Anderson, starring in The Shadow, and the organ played at midnight. And we thank you for tuning in on this Wednesday, 9th day of November, 313th day of the year. We have just 52 days remaining until we get to 2023. The Great Boston Fire of 1872 started on this date in history. Teddy Roosevelt, the first sitting president to make an official trip outside the country on this date in 1906 to inspect progress on the Panama Canal. Albert Einstein awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics on this date in 1921 for his work with the photoelectricity effect. Robert McNamara named president of Ford Motor Company on this date in 1960, the first non-Ford to serve in that post. He quit a month later to join the newly elected Kennedy administration. Neil Armstrong recorded a world record speed in a rocket plane on this date in 1961, flying over 6,500 kilometers an hour in an X-15. Of course, we know him for more than his daring do as a test pilot. Neil Armstrong, the first man to walk on the moon. Several U.S. states and parts of Canada hit by a series of blackouts on this date in 1965, lasting up to 13 hours. Communist-controlled East Germany opened checkpoints in the Berlin Wall on this date in 1989, allowing its citizens to freely travel to West Germany.
They're jumping the fence. 100, 150, 200, 300 East Berliners are climbing over the metal fence here, making their way towards the Berlin Wall, crying, "The wall is down, the wall is dead."
And on that date in 1989, people started demolishing the Berlin Wall. The first Mozilla Firefox released on this date in 2004, 1.0, one of Microsoft Internet Explorer's biggest competitors at the time, and it still is up there. John Ashcroft and Don Evans resigned their posts as Attorney General and Secretary of Commerce on this date in 2004. On that same date, Halo 2, released by Microsoft, the science fiction action shooter, smashed entertainment records, grossing $125 million on its first day. Passing away on this date in history, Neville Chamberlain, UK Prime Minister, also poet Dylan Thomas, French President Charles de Gaulle, Attorney General John Mitchell, actor Art Carney. Oh, he was such a funny man. And 60 Minutes, Ed Bradley, all passing away on this date. Among people born on this date in history, King Edward VII of the UK, actress Marie Dressler, actor Ed Wynn, very funny man. Also, we don't have much on him because his comedy was so visual that he did not do much radio. Hedy Lamarr, also born on this date, politician Sargent Shriver, Vice President Spiro Agnew, actress Dorothy Dandridge, Anne Sexton the poet, from Creedence Clearwater Revival, Tom Fogerty, and Carl Sagan.
We live on a very insignificant world among many, which circles a humdrum star of the sun, which is one of 400 billion others that make up the Milky Way galaxy, which is one of 100 billion other galaxies that makes up the universe, which it is now beginning to look is one of an enormous number, perhaps an infinite number of other closed-off universes.
Billions and billions of planets, as he was known for saying. Carl Sagan, born on this date in history. Dr. Robbins on CSI, Robert David Hall, 75 years old today. Actor Lou Ferrigno, 71, probably remembered best as the Incredible Hulk. From Dr. McSteamy on Grey's Anatomy, Eric Dane, 50 years old. Pop singer Nick Lachey is 49. His wife, the former Miss Teen USA, Filipina-American, and from a role on NCIS Hawaii, Vanessa Lachey, 42 today. They have 3 children together. Cisco from Drew Hill is 44 today. From the 2007 Hairspray, actress Nikki Blonsky is 34. And from the WWE, Pete Dunne, better known to SmackDown fans as Butch, is 29. Oh, dare we forget, from AEW, former AEW champion, former WWE champion, and currently the Ring of Honor heavyweight champion, Chris Jericho is 52 today.
But you know what? I got a bone to pick. Yeah, I got a bone to pick with somebody else who everybody is calling the greatest of all time. Yeah, somebody who won a little game yesterday by the hair of his chinny chin. Yeah, someone who everybody's calling the GOAT. Well, you know what happens when you steal Chris Jericho's nickname? You know what happens when you call yourself the greatest of all time and you're not me? You know what happens? Tom Brady, you just made the list! Oh my gosh.
His arrogant persona never fails to score points with the crowd to this day. Chris Jericho, 52 years old, as I said, current Ring of Honor champion. He's been the All Elite Wrestling champion, WWE champion. He has had a storied career in his 52 years. Though some of the people who celebrate the 9th day of November as their birthday, if this is your birthday.
Hi, we're the 4 freshmen, and we just want to say, happy birthday to you.
We go back 81 years to Sunday, November 9th, 1941. William Johnstone, Marjorie-Anderson, The Shadow on this Wednesday. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox.
You know, a lot of times you have to choose between something high quality or something that saves you money. But if you can get both, why not? Especially when it comes to health care. And that's MediShare. You get both. The typical family saves $500 a month switching to MediShare. And that's huge. But it's also true that people are way more satisfied after making the switch, too. The customer satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. It's because MediShare works. It's been around for more than a quarter century, and members have shared more than $3 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge PPO network. So, yeah, really, you could save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. If you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. Here is the number you need. Call 833-34-BIBLE. That's 833-34-BIBLE. 833-34-BIBLE.
Now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, we go back 81 years, November 9th, 1941, for The Shadow.
Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The Shadow knows.
The thrilling adventures of the Shadow are on the air. Brought to you each week at this time by your neighborhood blue coal dealer. These dramatizations are designed to demonstrate forcibly to old and young alike that crime does not pay. The Shadow, mysterious character who aids the forces of law and order, is in reality Lamont Cranston, wealthy young man about town. Several years ago in the Orient, Cranston learned a strange and powerful secret. the secret of hypnotic power to cloud men's minds so that they cannot see him. Cranston's friend and companion, the lovely Margot Lane, is the only person who knows to whom the voice of the invisible shadow belongs. Today's drama, The Organ Played at Midnight.
A knife. What an instrument a knife is. Have you ever watched a knife in the hands of a skillful surgeon? And did you shiver a little, then turn your eyes away? Yes, so did I. I remember exactly when it happened to me. I was watching the knife in the hands of Dr. Alexander Gibson. Gibson was a surgeon of the highest caliber. Even Professor Dana Williams spoke of him as one of the 3 most capable men he had ever had the honor to teach, thus ranking him with his colleagues, Dr. McGill and Dr. Nelson. How strange the thought of violence should have occurred to me. Stranger still, considering that it was the very next night Gibson burst into McGill's study. Heated words passed between the two, and then...
This case was to have been the most startling in my surgical career, Dr. McGill.
You forget that the patient asked to have me in attendance, Gibson.
I never agreed to a consultation.
I presumed on our friendship
You presumed on our friendship for the last time, McGill.
That's the way you want it, eh?
Yes, that's the way I want it.
Then you'll get the truth. You were bungling the case like a schoolboy. Old Williams would have fired you out of class for the job you were doing.
Oh, so I'm to gather that you saved the situation.
Exactly.
So the credit is yours, eh? Belongs to you.
Every bit of it. Well, doesn't it, Gibson? Well, can't you speak?
I haven't anything else to say.
Oh, you agree with me then?
Good night, McGill.
I've tried to be reasonable with you.
I said good night.
All right. Good night, then. But remember, we're not parting as friends, Gibson.
And we're not parting forever either, Dr. McGill.
Well, I'll have something to say about this at the medical board. Oh, no, I shouldn't let myself go like that. Nerves don't stand it well, not at all. Sedative's what I need. Yeah, what's that? Oh, the shade. Jumpy, unsettled. If I were my own patient, I'd... Someone at the door. Well, who's there? Well, who is it? Can't you hear me? Well, didn't you... Oh, you. Oh, I thought that you were... You have a knife there. Did you know you had a knife in your hand? Oh, it's some kind of a joke, isn't it? You're playing a joke on me, aren't you? Aren't you? Answer me. Answer me. Well, what are you going to do? No, don't come any closer. Well, what are you doing? Stop it. Stop it. Oh, you fool. You're cutting my arm. Ah!
A knife. What an instrument a knife is. Now a tool. Now a weapon. But its point goes deep, and a knife is always thirsty. And after the shrieking thrust in the dark, there is silence and a shroud, and the black drapery of the march of death hangs heavy in the startled air.
Lamont, I want to get away from the sound of it.
Of what, Professor Williams?
The funeral march. It depresses me.
You can understand what a shock Dr. McGill's death has been to you, Professor Williams.
A deep shock, Miss Lane. I won't forget it soon.
Is there anything we can do, sir?
Thank you, Cranston. Thank you. You always were one of the kinder fellows. You were never too interested in my classes, I'm afraid, but you were always a good chap. So was poor McGill, a fine, bright boy.
Yes, Professor.
But that anyone could kill him and not be content with that. Go to the horrible extreme of amputating his right arm. I can't bear to think of it.
Perhaps we'd better not, sir.
Yes, you're right. After all, my life goes on. There'll be new men for me to teach. I'm glad of that. And I'm glad to have you beside me today, Cranston.
Thank you, Professor.
It would be good, too, to have Gibson and Nelson with us. They're all that's left of McGill's famous triumvirate.
Well, I'm sure they're here, sir. We must have missed them.
Gibson isn't, I know. He called me. Couldn't come, he said. Oh, but see here, I've been rather gloomy company, I'm afraid. How would the two of you like to take the 5 o'clock train back to the college with me?
Oh, nice of you, Professor.
The homecoming football game is being played this afternoon. And if victory is ours, we should be just in time for the bonfire celebration.
We'd like to very much, but it's rather a long trip, and, well, we hadn't planned on it, Professor Williams.
If we'd known.
I only thought that we should be together on a day like this.
Professor Williams!
What was that?
Someone called my name.
Professor Williams!
Oh, it's Dr. Nelson. Good morning, my boy. You know Mr. Cranston.
Professor Williams, I think I deserve an explanation.
What's that, Nelson?
I don't understand this wire you sent me, sir.
The wire I sent you. I haven't had any reason to wire you, Nelson.
One never has a reason for such a thing as this. Listen to what it says. Take a good look at Dr. McGill and his coffin, Nelson, for you'll be the next to be wept for.
What?
Signed, John Smith.
You don't know a John Smith, of course.
Of course not.
But you thought I had sent that, Nelson? Why?
The postmark. It was sent from the college telegraph office.
It was? What time?
8:45 this morning.
I've been in the city since 7.
Well, of course, sir. Someone else sent this little love note, and they didn't mean it for a joke.
Well, what do you think, Lamont?
I think that if Professor Williams' invitation to go back to the college with him is still open, the three of us would be very wise to take it. Well, here we are, sir. And from the looks of things, victory was ours.
I'll take care of the cat.
Professor Williams.
Good evening, gentlemen. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Who won the game?
We did, sir.
We're building a swell bonfire, sir.
You should have been at the game, Professor. You'd have enjoyed it.
I would have very much, Tompkins. But there was something I had to do which I didn't enjoy at all. I want to congratulate you men. I want you to know that I'm proud of you.
Things haven't changed much, have they, Nelson?
They haven't changed at all, Cranston. He's still the idol of every boy here.
Shall we go inside now? I think Anna, my housekeeper, will have a cup of tea for us. Goodbye, gentlemen, and let the flames leap high for the conquering hero. There isn't much for you younger folk to do in a little college town like this, but I am going to perform quite an interesting post-mortem examination for my anatomy class tomorrow, and I thought perhaps you'd like to be in the amphitheater.
Well,
Yes, Professor, of
But
course.
on second thought, I realize that Miss Lane and you might not find it altogether to your taste.
Why, Margot and I would like very much to come, wouldn't we, Margot?
why? Well, yes, I'd love to.
Well, how about you, Dr. Nelson?
Aye? Why, Cranston, the day will never come when I won't be able to learn something from Dana Williams.
Thank you, Nelson. You're welcome to my home.
Thank you, Professor.
Anna!
Oh, you're back, Professor.
Yes, Anna. What about a pot of tea and some biscuits?
Oh, yes, sir. Ready in a jiffy, sir. Oh.
What is it, Anna?
Well, I was just wondering what it was you wanted done with it, sir. Was it left out to be sharpened?
What is that, Anna?
Your knife, Professor.
My knife? Why, all of my knives are in my kit in the laboratory.
But when I come in to clean up just after you left, there it was shining up at me plain as day.
Where is it, Anna?
Right in the study on top of the desk, sir.
Professor Williams, do you mind if I have a look at it?
Why, no, of course not. Come along, Nelson.
Right.
Julia, I don't understand it. Anna's right. There it is, just as she said.
May I see it, sir?
Of course, Cranston.
Oh, Professor Williams.
Yes, my boy.
Look here, on the back of the blade.
Initials.
Why, they're A.G.
A.G.? Why, Nelson, that's...
Alexander Gibson?
Oh, no. Miss Lane, would you answer that for me, please?
Yes, of course, Professor. Hello? Oh, yes, he's here. It's for you, Dr. Nelson.
Oh, thank you. Hello? Yes? What? How long? I see. Thank you very much. Professor Williams.
Yes, Nelson.
That was my office in town. They've been phoning all day about Gibson. He's been missing, it seems, ever since the night poor McGill was murdered.
Well, gentlemen, looks like the bonfire's begun.
Gee, this amphitheater's cold.
Yeah, sure is.
I wanted to sleep this morning anyhow.
If you miss his postmortems, old Williams will never forget it.
Not losing your nerves, are you, Margot?
Well, not yet. I can't say that the sheeted form there on the table is helping me very much, though.
After all, it's just an examination, Margot. If you keep remembering that it's all in the interest of science, you won't get uneasy.
Wonder where Dr. Nelson could be.
Well, he must have overslept, I guess.
I thought doctors had to be punctual.
Old Williams will be punctual. See?
Here he comes.
What did I tell you?
Gentlemen, good morning.
Precisely according to schedule.
The subject for our post-mortem this morning is the cadaver of a man of middle age in an excellent state of preservation. Jennings, will you remove the sheet?
Yes, Professor Williams.
It will form a most satisfactory subject for our investigations. Jennings, I'd like the sheet removed from the entire body, not just the head.
Oh.
Jennings.
Oh, Professor Williams.
What are you staring at, man?
What's the matter with you? Professor Williams.
What is it, Jennings? What is it?
Margot, what's happening down there?
I can't quite see. Jennings has the sheet halfway down, but he's leaning over the table.
Jennings, what's happened to you?
Williams is pulling him away. Margot, look! On the table.
Oh, Lamont! It's
Dr. Nelson! Nelson, my boy!
From 81 years ago, November 9th, 1941, Bill Johnstone, Marjorie-Anderson, starring In the Shadow. I'm Wyatt Cox. Thank you so much for joining us here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Visit my webpage, please, classicradio.stream. We'll tell you more about that later on. We will also have you the news from 81 years ago. But first, we have these important words from your favorite radio station and hope you'll pay attention. Thanks for tuning in to Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. We're listening to an episode of The Shadow, the organ played at midnight, as it was originally broadcast on Sunday, 5:30 Eastern Time, November 9th, 1941. Quick word, the reason it was so early in the day for being such a landmark program is because a lot of mutual stations were daytime-only stations, and they would go off the air by 6 o'clock. But there you go. In the newspapers of that Sunday 81 years ago, these are some of the headlines. Admittedly, without much hope of reaching a settlement with the United States, Japan's special envoy Saburo Kurosu flew eastward while the far eastern air thickened with conjecture on President Roosevelt's contemplated withdrawal of U.S. Marines from China. A reliable source said Kurosu told friends during his overnight stopover in Manila there was not much hope his dramatic flying to Washington would be successful. Royal Air Force planes roared over the Strait of Dover in a steady stream as soon as the moon rose last night, continuing without a let-up the giant new offensive which sent 600 to 800 planes against Berlin and the continent Friday night and Saturday. The British declared it was the greatest offensive of the war, with 300 planes in the air over France at one time Saturday, in addition to the several hundred planes used Friday night. Adolf Hitler answered President Roosevelt's Navy Day challenge with an order last night to the German Navy to defend itself against American ships. Speaking at a Munich beer cellar anniversary, Hitler made 3 points. First, that he would not be intimidated by the United States. Second, challenged Britain to attempt to create a second front against Germany and Western Europe. And third, pictured Russia as being strangled. Replying to Mr. Roosevelt's assertion that all that will matter is who fired the last shot, Hitler thundered defiantly that no matter how long the war lasts, the last battalion on the field will be German. High defense officials were reported to have given tacit backing to a proposal that defense strikes be forbidden unless approval in a secret ballot by a majority of voters in a plant. Senator Bridges of New Hampshire, a Republican who has supported the administration's foreign policies, disclosed that he had drafted for introduction in the Senate Monday a bill including this idea. Under its terms, unions would be required to register with the National Labor Relations Board, file a list of their officers, and furnish an accounting of their finances. Under penalty of suspension of their collective bargaining rights, the units could not strike. Dispatches from Ecuador today reported that 94 Ecuadorian gold seekers had been massacred by head-hunting Jibaro Indians in the border area long disputed between Ecuador and Peru. Georgia Governor Eugene Talmadge left Jacksonville immediately after the annual Georgia-Florida football game, but there was no indication that a letter from a group of Florida students calling him an unwelcome guest had anything to do with his quick departure. The governor attended the game apparently unworried by the letter. He watched the first half from the north stands, where the University of Florida student section always is located, and moved across to the south at halftime. John Cotton Brown, the editor of the Florida student newspaper, The Alligator, headed a group that delivered the letter to Talmadge's hotel, apparently referring to recent changes made by Talmadge in the Georgia University system. The letter said that the Florida group felt that you have no true interest in today's game since you've shown no sympathy or regard for the universities or your state. Those some of the day's top news stories as reported in the newspapers of Sunday, November 9th, 1941, on your radio The Shadow. The conclusion next on this Wednesday, Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite station. On Thursday's Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, Mr. Keen, Tracer of Lost Persons, starring Bennett Kilpack from 73 years ago, November 10th, 1949. The Engaged Girl Murder Case. Mr. Keen solves a murder case while on horseback. Did you ever wonder that he was a tracer of lost persons, but he always ended up with murder cases? I never figured that out. Anyway, that's coming up on our Thursday Classic Radio Theater tomorrow. Right now, on our Wednesday Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, the conclusion of The Shadow. Bill Johnstone, Marjorie-Anderson, November 9th, 1941. 81 years ago, the organ played at midnight.
Oh, Cranston. Miss Lane, where are we?
It's all right, Professor. You're at home. You've been delirious.
Oh, yes, I remember now. I see it all. Oh, Cranston.
Yes, Doctor.
Is it possible for you to conceive the monster who could murder both McGill and Nelson in the space of a few days?
Margot, will you get that, please? There's an extension in the next room.
Yes, Lamont.
Well, Professor, was it necessarily the work of the same man?
Lamont, with my last consciousness before I fainted, I realized that Dr. Nelson's body had the right forearm off the elbow, just as it was with poor McGill.
You're quite right, Professor. Obviously, the same hand held the knife.
We must stop that hand, Cranston. We must stop it.
Easy now, sir. You must try to relax.
What can we do, Lamont?
Well, tell me, Professor, who exactly had access to the room where the cadavers are kept?
Who? Why, only myself. That is, except for old Jennings.
Professor Williams. Old Jennings has disappeared.
Oh, no.
He's nowhere to be found.
Oh, now, he had nothing to do with it. Jennings has been with me for 20 years. Besides, I examined the body carefully in the morgue before I had him wheel it up to the amphitheater.
And it wasn't the body of Dr. Nelson?
Oh, no, I'm sure of that. Absolutely sure.
Then it means that the murderer substituted the body of Dr. Nelson somewhere between the morgue and the amphitheater.
Lamont, that phone call.
Oh, what was it, Margot?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No. It was a strange voice. A voice I'd never heard before. And it sounded muffled, far away. I said, hello, and whoever it was said that... Oh, it doesn't make sense.
Miss Lane, what did they say?
Well, they said, if the organ plays tonight at midnight, the lost will be found.
Nothing more than that?
No. They must have hung up or been cut off, that was all.
What could they mean? If the organ plays at...
Go on, Professor.
What was that?
That noise. I heard it, too.
There's something banging outside the window.
Oh, only a loose blind.
There are no blinds on those windows.
No?
Lamont, my boy, be careful.
Yeah, there it is again.
Oh, Lamont. Lamont.
Don't excite yourself, Professor Williams.
Margot, don't look out here.
What is it, Lamont?
Professor Williams.
Yes, Cranston.
It's...
Cranston, tell me.
a human forearm.
Human? Oh, no, no.
What earthly reason could there be for such a horrible...
Wait a minute. There's a note tied to the index finger. Rather a garish way to post a letter, but I think it's the reason for this ghastly tableau.
A note? What does it say?
Just a moment. It says the gates of death will open for you in an hour.
The gates of death?
And that's what's written here.
It's meant for me.
Oh, what was that?
It's Anna. She's downstairs in her room. Something's happened.
Easy now, Professor. I'll tend to it. All right, Anna, I'm coming. Anna! This is Mr. Cranston. Let me in.
Oh, Mr. Cranston, I saw him. I saw him.
You saw who, Anna? Who did you see?
Him, what done the murders.
Who?
Gibson. I just raised my window and I looked out and there he was coming across the lawn.
There's no one out here now.
Oh, he must have run when I screamed. Do you know what, Mr. Cranston? I thought I saw him the day after poor Dr. McGill was murdered.
Where?
Standing there just as plain as day, and I said to myself, I'll bet he's up to no good.
Anna, this is very important. Now tell me, where did you see him?
In front of the gates of death.
What did you say?
I said I saw him in front of the gates of death. He was
The
standing...
gates of death?
Oh, that's new since you've been here, isn't it? Well, that's what some of the students started calling that big pair of iron gates at the back of the morgue. The ones they bring the corpses through. You see, I was on my way to do some
I'm sorry,
shopping.
Anna. I'll talk to you later. Margot! Margot!
Lamont, what is it?
The light is breaking, Margot. Come on, my girl. We've got work to do. What time was the note delivered, Margot?
It was just 10:30, Lamont.
11:25. I think we're just on time.
On time for what?
To see the gates of death open.
Lamont, are you out of your head?
Here, duck down behind the wall here. You see those huge gates at the rear of the morgue building?
Yes.
The students call them the gates of death.
The gates of... Why, then that's what the note meant. It said they would open in...
Look, they are opening now, Margot.
There's someone standing there. Why, it's...
Old Jennings. That's where he's been hiding.
Listen. He's signaling to somebody.
Now someone should turn up.
I hear somebody walking.
There he is. Coming down the path. He's going to the gates.
Who is it?
I can't quite see, Margot. But this I do know. Jennings and his friend are going to receive a visit from the shadow.
You follow me, and we'll go inside together. I sent you the note. I had to. They think I done it. I know they does.
Why shouldn't they think you did it, Jennings?
Hey, what's that? Why, you're not.
I'm Dr. Gibson, Jennings.
Oh, I thought you...
I've come to look at Dr. Nelson's body.
Oh, no, you ain't allowed
I
to.
warn you, Jennings, there's enough on my head. Now, don't interfere with me.
All right. Don't hurt me. I won't do nothing.
Where's the body?
Right in through the door there.
Then come along.
Oh, you go first.
All right, I'll go first, but I warn you, if you try any...
Oh. You want me to tell. You want to know all about what happened. But I ain't going to tell. Not ever. What's that?
Jennings, what have you to hide?
Oh, who's that? Who's there? I don't see nobody.
I am the shadow, Jennings. I've cast a hypnotic spell over your brain so that you cannot see me. But I'm here, Jennings. Tell me, what have you to hide?
Oh, I can't tell you. They'd put me in prison if anybody found out. He told me they would.
Who, Jennings?
Professor Williams.
Williams? Jennings, tell me what happened. Tell me.
Oh, I didn't mean no harm. You see, I put an explosive in one of his test tubes by mistake.
Explosive?
Yes. And the next thing I knew, there was a loud noise, and he screamed, and there he stood with his arm hanging loose. That was 20 years ago, and he'd have been a great doctor all this time if I hadn't done what I did.
Why did you send that note tonight, Jennings?
Because he promised to help me if I did as he always said, and I always have, I have. Oh, now what am I going to do? He hurts him every time he looks at the students, and sometimes he used to whisper to me, they all have two arms.
Tell me this one thing more. Which arm was it, Jennings?
His right arm, his right forearm. It looks all right, but it's dead from the wrist to the elbow.
Jennings, care of Gibson until he regains consciousness. Then let him go. And remember, the shadow is watching you. And that's the answer to the note. Old Jennings.
But, Lamont, there's still...
What?
That phone call. If the organ plays at midnight, the lost will be found. Remember?
Of course I do. That's why I've walked you over to the chapel.
The chapel?
Unless I'm mistaken, the organ they meant is the big pipe organ in the loft of the chapel here. And if it plays at
midnight.
Hurry, Margot. We don't want to be late for the concert.
I'm coming.
Look. The chapel door. It's open.
There's someone here.
See? A light. It's coming from the organ loft. Margot, I think we've come to the end of the trail. There it is.
The funeral march we heard at the church yesterday.
The one old Williams said depressed him so. I'm going up there, Margot. The killer hasn't quite finished his work, I'm afraid.
The organ. It stopped.
I think trouble's coming.
Lamont, I think it's arrived.
It has, Margot. You wait here. There's work to be done up there in that loft, and only the shadow can do it.
Let me go. I know you killed Nelson and McGill. You stole my knife out of my office to pin your crimes on me. But you won't get away with it.
Won't I, Gibson? Who's going to stop me?
I will. I telephoned you about the organ because I knew you'd fall in the trap. I knew you'd come to kill me, too, to get rid of the last of us, to feed your insane lust.
Right again, Gibson. I'm going to kill you. Why should you little men live while I, the genius of my time, rot here, crippled and deformed? I've had only my left arm these 20 years, but it's strong now, and I've used it well. It's too strong for you to stop the knife, Gibson.
Oh, I can't stop it, please. Please don't.
Gibson, the point is on your throat.
Drop that knife, Professor Williams.
Who's there? Who's there, I say?
I am the shadow. I am invisible to you, but I have come to put an end to your killings, Williams.
Oh, no. No, you haven't. Not until I've finished with Gibson. Not yet. Help! Help!
I want you, Williams.
My arm. Something's holding it. Let go. Let go.
Drop that knife. And now, Williams, we'll see what a court of justice has to say about your crimes.
Court of justice. No court would convict me. I've had a right to do what I've done. I lost my arm, didn't I? An eye for an eye, an arm for an arm. You see? That's justice, Shadow. And no court would find me guilty.
Dana Williams, this jury has found you guilty of murder in the first degree. And I, by virtue of the authority vested in me, sentence you to be hanged by the neck until you are dead. And may the Lord have mercy on your soul.
A knife. What an instrument a knife is. The treacherous implement that turns to a weapon in the hands of murder. When it's a thing of good and when it's a thing of evil, none can say. But this we know. A knife is sharp. Its point goes deep. And a knife is always thirsty.
Characters, names, places, and plot are fictitious. Any similarity to persons living or dead is purely coincidental. Direct from real life, we now bring you conclusive proof that crime does not pay. At 2 a.m. in a hotel room hideout, police waited one day last week for Joseph Miller, wanted for 2 murders. At last came the long-awaited knock on the door.
It's Joseph Miller. Remember, boys, he's dangerous. If he pulls a gun, shoot fast and straight. I'm going to open the door. Halt! Halt! He's on the fire escape. Call headquarters.
I gotta hide. Quick. What's behind this window? Big dining room. It's black. They'll never find me here.
Your crimes have caught up with you, Joseph Miller. 100%. police are closing in on you right this instant.
No, I ain't gonna let them get me. I can't stand it. I'll kill myself.
So, in the wide, haunting blackness of an empty banquet hall, Joseph Miller, criminal, died by his own hand. The weed of crime bears bitter fruit. Crime does not pay. The shadow knows.
Next week, same time, same station, your friendly blue coal dealer brings you another strange and thrilling adventure in the Shadow's daring battle against the forces of evil. Be sure to listen, and be sure to phone your neighborhood blue coal dealer for greater heating comfort at less cost. Remember, keep the home fires burning with blue coal.
I can't find the number, but usually Mutual had more radio affiliates than NBC or CBS in 1941. Even considering that NBC at the time had 2 networks. But quite frankly, they were much smaller networks and in much smaller towns. So that NBC and CBS made more money, they had more advertisers, and the bigger, the more prosperous, the more profitable shows. November 9th, 1941, The Shadow here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Thank you for making us a part of your day. Would you thank this station and support their advertisers? It is their kindness and courtesy that allow us to be with you each and every Wednesday. We roll around here on your favorite radio station. Now, if you miss a day, you don't have to miss a single show. All of our shows are available on demand at classicradio.stream. That's classicradio.stream. There you can stream our shows on demand, learn more about classic radio collecting. You can contact me there. You can also find our social media links. You can learn about building a classic radio collection of your own. Lists of sites that have our podcasts available for download. And if you'd like to help us grow our classic radio collection, you can buy me a coffee. That buy me a coffee money goes expressly toward us building our classic radio collection. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great day, and would you do me a favor? Tell all your friends the great radio shows are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite radio station.